Unlock Mind Control, the discipline teachings that changed my life. Once upon a time, in a quiet corner of a bustling city, there was a man who seemed to have it all. A successful career, a perfect relationship, and the kind of confidence that made people wonder if he had a secret. But behind the polished exterior, he was a prisoner of his own mind. One night, exhausted from the chaos of life, he stumbled across an old book that promised something almost unbelievable: mind control through discipline. Skeptical yet desperate for change, he gave it a chance. What followed over the next few months was beyond anything he could have ever imagined. He began to master the art of stillness, learning that true control isn't about controlling the world around him, but what's happening inside his own head. Suddenly, the distractions that once dictated his every move no longer had power over him. The noise, the pressure, all of it started to fade away. But just when he thought he had it all figured out, something happened that shook him to his core. His mind, once so easily scattered, began to rebel against his newfound discipline. Was this truly the path to freedom, or was he being manipulated by the very techniques he thought would save him? You won't believe what happened next, because the real battle for control isn't what you think. The air was thick with the sounds of the city, horns blaring, people rushing, lives overlapping in chaotic motion. He sat in his apartment, staring out the window as the evening sun dipped below the skyline. His fingers trembled as he closed the book. The cover was old, its leather worn from years of neglect. He had no idea how it had found its way into his hands, but now it was impossible to look away. There was something about the way the words echoed in his mind, something that felt like a whisper from the past, as though they were written specifically for him. Mind control. He scoffed at the term. He was no magician, no mind reader, yet deep within something stirred. Could it really be possible? Could the madness in his head finally be quelled? For years he had tried every method: meditation, therapy, mind-numbing distractions. They all worked, but only for a time. His thoughts always came back, relentless, like a river cutting through stone, eroding his peace bit by bit. But this felt different. It wasn't about trying to block out the thoughts, it was about learning to control them. And so he began. Every day he sat for hours in absolute stillness. No distractions, no noise. The clock ticked away, but he remained unmoved. It was uncomfortable at first, almost unbearable, but he pushed through. The world around him felt so loud, so demanding. But he stayed still. Slowly, the sensations of chaos began to fade. He learned to focus on nothing but the rhythm of his breath, the rise and fall like waves crashing on the shore. In those moments, no room for anything else. It was liberating. For the first time in years, he felt like he could breathe. His thoughts didn't control him anymore. He controlled them. His mind, once a chaotic battlefield, was now a calm sea. The pressure, the racing heartbeat, is the overactive thoughts. They no longer had a hold on him. He felt unstoppable. But then something strange happened. As he pushed deeper into his practice, a nagging feeling began to surface. The stillness that he had worked so hard to cultivate started to feel wrong. The book had promised mastery over his mind, but now it was as if the mind had a life of its own. He would wake in the middle of the night, heart pounding, drenched in sweat. His thoughts, once so easily manageable, now felt like shadows moving just out of reach. And the more he tried to control them, the more they slipped away. He became obsessed. He would sit for hours trying to recapture the peace he had once felt. But every time he thought he had control, the darkness crept back in. It was as if the discipline had triggered something darker, something he couldn't name. His thoughts became fragmented. He felt like he was chasing his own mind, like trying to catch smoke in his hands. Each moment of stillness now felt like a battle, and every victory was met with the haunting question: what if this was all an illusion? The peace he had longed for seemed to slip further away with every effort to grasp it. His every action, his every decision was now tainted by doubt. What was he truly controlling? Was he the master of his mind, or had he simply learned to obey it? Days turned into weeks. The man felt like a shadow of himself. He would walk through the city, his mind racing with questions, doubts, fears. He couldn't escape the feeling that the more he controlled, the more he lost. In the middle of the chaos, he met someone. She was a stranger, yet her presence felt like a jolt to his entire existence. She was calm, at peace in a way he had never known. They spoke for hours, and in her words, he heard the echoes of the very teachings he had tried to master. But there was something different about her approach. She wasn't forcing control. She wasn't battling her thoughts. Instead, she had found a way to live with them, to accept them without judgment. It was like a door had opened inside him. He began to realize that true mind control wasn't about dominance. It was about surrender, not to the chaos, but to the process. The discipline wasn't about forcing the mind to be quiet. It was about accepting the noise, the distractions, and learning to exist with them, to find peace within the chaos, not in spite of it. It was a lesson he had never expected. In his search for control, he had missed the point entirely. It wasn't about locking the mind away. It was about allowing the mind to flow, to live, and still find peace amidst it all. And that's when it hit him. Mind control wasn't the battle. It was the acceptance. He had been fighting against his own nature, trying to push away everything that was a part of him. True discipline wasn't forcing silence. It was finding harmony within the noise. It was a revelation, a turning point that would change everything. But what happened next as he took his first step toward true freedom was more profound than he could ever have imagined. His life, his entire reality, began to shift in ways he hadn't even begun to comprehend. And now, as you sit here watching, do you ever wonder what would happen if you surrendered to the noise in your life? What if instead of controlling, you learned to live with it? To find peace, not by eliminating the chaos, but by embrace is just the beginning. What happens next could be the turning point for you too. Comment below with one word that captures how you feel about this idea of mind control through surrender. What does it stir in you? Like this video if you think you're ready for this challenge, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. There's more waiting for you, and you won't believe what comes next.